I mean, if you think about it, it's actually reverse, right? I mean, in Interstellar, the future is actually trying to save the past, and in Tenet, the future is actually trying to battle the past.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone to the second podcast in our podcast series, and this podcast is about the much awaited and much anticipated release of last year, Tenet. The movie was directed by Christopher Nolan, starring uh, Elizabeth Debicki, John David Washington, and Robert Pattinson. It was despite the uh, COVID lockdown, Nolan was very insistent on releasing the movie in big IMAX theaters, as he's very passionate about experiencing it on the big screen. So we're gonna talk about it. So I'll start it by asking general opinions about both of you. So Divyank, what do you feel about the film?
So I really like the film. I think it was a good action and sci-fi thriller, and I think it had some great sequences and great performance by John David Washington, Elizabeth Debicki, and Kenneth Branagh and Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, what about you, Anand?
I also really liked it. I felt that it was one of the most visually satisfying movies I've seen, with all the inversion effects were really well done. And yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, the for if you ask me, it's the main idea of the movie. It's basically a palindrome, right? The story, the sound effects, and even the entire movie, the story, and even the name. It's entirely it's based around the palindrome. So even the name of the movie Tenet is a palindrome, right? So I mean, it's just it's amazing that how he was able to construct a movie based around a core idea, even though remaining original it's to its belief. I think about the score, I think it was done by Ludwig Göransson. He was
Yeah, Hans Zimmer couldn't come
yeah,
back for this.
yeah. Actually, he left for Dune to do it with Denis Villeneuve, and he was personally said that Ludwig Göransson can do. He personally suggested it to Nolan, and he actually has done a really great job on this. Like a lot of scores, if you listen, they are actually they sound the same when you play it backwards and forwards. I think
Yeah.
especially the one that really points out. I think it's a soundtrack called Drugs in Place. It the soundtrack plays when during the Freeport chase scene when the protagonist first climbs on to the fire truck to steal the algorithm, which is inside the freeway that's inside a truck. So I think that particular soundtrack is I think it's made of temporal pincers, like it's small bits of music that are actually the same forward and backward, and those small bits of music are also arranged in a way that if you play the entire thing backwards, it actually sounds the same. So I think that's pretty incredible stuff to do such things. And yeah, I think Divyank, this is like a really plot heavy film, right? I mean, it's just like uh, it's previous films that he has done. Like it's a very plot over character kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, most Nolan films are usually plot-heavy films. Like they use a lot of expositions. Even in Tenet, you can see Robert Pattinson and John David Washington are just like walking in New York streets and like they're just explaining various things about their mission and various plot devices. So I think that is a tendency of Christopher Nolan to sort of focus more on the plot rather than the characters. But then again, some character arcs in this film is they're quite interesting, I think.
Yeah.
And
Any yeah.
even in his stuff like Inception and Interstellar, there is more of a focus on the characters and giving them backstories and stuff. Here, with the protagonist, we don't even get his name. John David Washington's character. It's there's a lot of mystery around surrounding him, and you can't really relate to his character. So that's a bit of a negative for me with this movie.
I mean, I honestly
Yeah.
think he has been given this James Bond kind of an archetype. So we don't know a lot about him, but we know that he's just a man in a suit who can who is ready to do anything to say, to just get over with this mission. So I think that's sort of attractive and also, yeah, a kind of a negative of the film.
Yeah, most of the emotional the story of Vicky's character and her son, and that bit of the story.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's basically it's just like a James Bond film with a meshing of sci-fi stuff, right? So, I mean, just like any sci-fi movie or a spy movie, it's emotionally distant. You actually you just get the bits, and even like the first half an hour or 1 hour of the movie, it goes by really fast. The pacing is actually, I mean, it's really good that he has actually tried to do it. In his previous films, he actually makes us follow with him, but this time it actually seems like Nolan doesn't care if we keep up with the stuff or the setup. It's just like bits and pieces, and it feels like it's like chopped off in a way that it's just want to move through the setup and just starts to get with the main villain, introducing the main villain and the plot, and afterwards the whole thing that happened afterwards. I mean, yeah. So basically,
Yeah.
it's emotionally distant. It isn't. It is something that resonates with you because it's basically a spy film, and spy films aren't something that like get any room for character development or anything. And I mean, basically, it's like spoiler. Like at the end, when we come to know that the big reveal that Neil was the one who actually dies for him, and he is the one at the opera. I mean, it doesn't emphasizes the characters actually.
Yeah,
It's
it doesn't
not
affect
something
us that
that's,
much.
yeah, it actually re-summarizes the entire plot. I mean, it's a huge reveal to know like how actually it happened. Like the whole thing was actually a loop. So yeah, basically it's a plot heavy film, obviously, because you aren't given much about characters anyway, and they actually feel like pieces in a puzzle more than a pathways for basically so I was talking about. Another thing actually is, I mean, Nolan is pretty much known for using practical effects throughout all of his films. And I mean, even if you're talking about in this movie, we cannot just gloss over the point of the scene where he crashed an actual plane
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
into, yeah, that scene.
If
I
he said it
mean,
would be cheaper.
yeah, actually, yeah, I had read stuff about it, and he said, like Nolan said, that it was actually cheaper to do it when they tried to tally it, and he said that they actually sold the engines and stuff, the expensive parts of the plane that actually could bring them more profit and all. And actually, there's actually a lot of behind the scenes footage of that. Like if you see it, they have actually used multiple cameras and in multiple ways to actually record it. So because obviously they can't crash a plane twice, right? It has to take, like, the stakes are high when you do such a scene,
And you
obviously.
have like 5 different perspectives of that scene because it comes into play twice in the movie. So you need
Yeah,
different
yeah,
looks at
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. And I think like the second time they use it, it's actually amazing that, like, especially I think the turbine scene, right, where he gets thrown into the vault, and in the forward time he actually gets picked up into the vault. So they had actually like one take just to do this and to just reverse the clip afterwards. I mean, I think, Divyank, I think about the stunt, the people who did the stunts. I mean, they also did the action backwards, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Like
it's,
even
yeah,
John David Washington, he himself had to do a lot of scenes, a lot of fight scenes backwards. So, which is one thing that Nolan praised. In fact, that John David Washington is such a great performer that he legit trained for those backward scenes. And like all those bullets and stuff, they used magnets to do the practical reverse effects instead of just reversing the clip in post.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you would
And I
expect
think,
most of it to be done as using special effects, but they even talk backwards.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
in the scene where I forgot the name. The villain is
Kenneth
talking to
Branagh,
Elizabeth Debicki's
Satyr.
character. Yeah, Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the wall, they had the syllables written out so he could speak it backwards.
Yeah, I
yeah,
heard
yeah.
that.
I actually saw a photo on, I think, that there was a whiteboard kept beneath the window, the painting window where they shot
Hmm.
both the scenes. Yeah, and actually he had written syllables backwards because he had. So it wasn't that he said it forward and they just reversed the clip. He actually said it. So the recorded the clips like in like normal time. Like they didn't reverse it
Yeah,
when
yeah,
he actually said that. Yeah, he actually had to say reverse the dialogues. And I mean, like a lot of scenes. First of all, like from the second half, I think the movie just blows out of proportion, right? Like the first half of the movie, it's just like basically a spy movie. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guess
And
you
you're
get
trying to
an
figure
entire
out what's
world.
happening.
Yeah, it's just like a world is established, and like the character relations are established now, and you just have to get person to person there and there for information. Then you have to return to the same person for more information, and it's just basically that. But I think the reverse cars chase scene where the protagonist steals the algorithm, from there it actually explodes into just sci-fi movie completely. It just forgets itself into itself that it was a spy movie before. I mean, just like the scene just where the broken car that was lying around, it just inverts itself and starts driving backwards. I mean, yeah, that was a really cool moment, right? I mean, yeah.
And even the cars
Yeah.
which are inverted, they're actually they're not being inverted. The image is not being reversed. They actually got stunt drivers to drive the cars as they were inverted. So I think that's something that's really unique about this movie. And yeah, till that car chase scene, you're really trying to catch up and figure out what's happening. And then at that point, it starts making a lot more sense.
Yeah. I think even the complexity of the scene. I mean, uh, so basically, it's the scene is also basically kind of loop, right? Because so if the film actually shows from a objective point of view, from the point of view of I think point of view of the protagonist.
The protagonist, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what happens is like he steals the algorithm, then reverse Sator comes and takes it from him, and then he's actually taken back by reverse Sator again into the vault, and then he's questioned again by reverse Sator about the algorithm, which is actually the past reverse Sator. So the one that actually questions him knows less about the chase that's going to happen, because obviously because he's going in reverse,
That hasn't
right?
He
happened.
has
Yeah.
So yeah, and then he just escapes into the vault and he just disappears because now he's into past. But actually, if you see it from Elizabeth Debicki's view, what happens is she's taken into by reverse people, by the Satyr. She's kidnapped and just thrown into the car chase stuff. Then she's again taken by the reverse Satyr and thrown back into the vault. And then she's shot by an inverted round. And then when Satyr escapes, she's still not inverted. And when Satyr inverts himself and then actually shoots her in real time, which according to her is actually reversed, this is still not inverted. The only time she gets inverted is when Ives arrives and his cavalry arrives. So what happens is like twice she gets thrown out of the vault and brought in, and all the time just reverse people, like some reverse shit is happening around her. So I mean that's pretty incredible. Even like from if you say from Satyr's point of view, what he does is he stops and he just hides behind the wall and he just takes all the reverse information from the Satyr, and then he questions the protagonist and just escapes into the. So yeah, I mean, if we just look at this scene, if we isolate this scene, it's basically a palindrome, or as the movie describes, a temporal pincer itself. Because what happens is reverse Satyr actually travels backwards and tells all the information at the beginning of the chase to the forward Satyr, who then actually has all the information and takes all the chase, then completes, and then again inverts himself, who gives the information back to. So it's basically a loop. I would say it's
Yeah.
like our brain
It's a
will
time
turn
travel
into
movie.
smash, but yeah, we actually can't comprehend a lot of stuff about this. It's actually very and another scene I actually wanted to talk about was the turnstile scene, where, like, spoilers, but the protagonist actually fights himself, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
stunts actually, the stunt was actually, they were actually done in reverse. The walls thing, like they somersault and they just crawl onto the ground. I mean, right? I mean, they were actually done in reverse. Uh, like the scene where the gun just falls onto the ground, and the reverse protagonist,
Yeah,
who is in
it looks like
the
he's
suit.
throwing it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
actually, so he was actually pulled, and he was actually crawled. Like the footage wasn't inverted. They actually shot the scene twice from the reverse protagonist view at the starting of the vault, where he gets thrown into the vault, and also from the normal protagonist view at the start of the turnstile. So I mean, it's incredible stuff. I mean, if we like show this animation, actually what happens is this movie doesn't show like a panorama kind of view, right? It just shows the same thing happening from different people's
Same scene
views.
twice
So
from
it
different
doesn't,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
perspectives.
and it doesn't show actually from the whole. See, if you see the whole thing, it actually shows that when Neil, when they just almost about to suffocate in the forward timeline, when they're almost about to suffocate and arrive in the ball, Neil says that there's someone in here with us. I think that's the exact dialogue he uses. And at that exact time, on the other side of the wall, there's actually inverted Neil, who's actually going back into the ambulance from which they arrived from the port from the ship in the container. So actually, this is I mean, if you see this, it's actually very amazing to see it this way because it
And
actually
like,
shows a lot of moving parts. Yeah,
I mean, what we know is that Neil actually knew this the whole time. He was intentionally keeping
yeah,
this from
yeah,
the protagonist because that was sort of an essential part of the plot as well. That Neil knew that Neil knew his fate, like from the start to the end, and we are finding out as the protagonist is finding out. So that was something which was very interesting.
And
yeah,
also
yeah.
scenes like this really improve the replay value of it, because when you
Yeah,
watch
yeah,
the
yeah.
movie again,
Yeah,
you know what's
yeah,
happening and you know that
It's
he's
meant to
fighting
be watched
himself. So
at
you can
least
see
twice,
from
like
different
this
light.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Its rewatch value is actually pretty high. Like especially the second half of the movie, it's really
Hmm.
incredible stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
even the war scene where I mean the famous like the building explodes and just makes
And
itself
then
up.
comes
Yeah,
back again and then it
from
explodes again. Yeah.
that scene. I mean, like I still don't know like how they did it because it's just one single shot. It's just the camera just pans upwards and we see the building just form again. So I'm still not sure like how they did it. I mean, it's even with practical effects. I mean, like it. I'm not sure like without CGI how it's possible to pull off such a scene. I think. Yeah, and so I think like where do you think this would rank in among other Nolan movies? Like there has been a lot. Like it has been his own like cinematic universe, right? Like he has been
Yeah, yeah.
making these kind of very bold ideas that he has been taken into and bring it like he's making it very accessible. Like this is a very complicated idea, like which Tenet
Yeah.
represents.
Like as
Like
we're
the
trying to
inverse.
explain it, it's very difficult to explain.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
made
Even
it
if you
accessible.
yeah somehow like he's taken even in Interstellar like all the sci-fi and black holes and like relativity and stuff. In Inception there has been like 3 levels of dreams and all like so like where would you rank this one, because I think this hasn't been a much like positively received as like let's say Dark Knight or even Inception was received like very highly positively.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Tenet has actually been very open to skepticism from critics and all. People are saying that he went way too complicated. I think that it hasn't been a lot possible to do this kind of complicated stuff and still make people actually invest in the film to make it to make them actually follow through the whole thing. So I think yeah, so like I'd like to know where would you rank it, like beneath or above which film would you take?
I mean, I don't think it's possible to like rank two films, but what I know is that the story of Tenet is not as rich as, let's say, Prestige, for example, because Prestige is a film which is
Yeah,
like which is a lot of character work. But Tenet is a very fun film to watch. It's like meant for a big cinematic experience. So I mean, my favorite film from Nolan all time are like Prestige and Inception. So I think it's more or less like Dunkirk for me.
yeah. And Anand, what about you?
It's not one of my favorite Nolan films. I'd say it's about at the level of Batman Begins for me. Around Batman Begins, it's a bit worse than
Okay.
Prestige in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, for I think I agree with Divyak. I think for me also, Prestige is I think his best film. Like it's highly underrated. I think still
Yeah,
like
totally.
it's yeah. And I think I think Tenet wouldn't be in my top three at least. I think it may be in my top five. I think given that the amount of work that was actually the amount of detail actually was put in, it was
Yeah,
actually intent. Like this is the best thing he has done actually by now. The amount of detail that he has actually put, so that actually adds to its rewatch value. There were a
It's
lot
his
of
most
scenes where
complex film.
Yeah. Shot like by a long shot. This is the most complex thing. Like
Well, I don't
Inception
think
and
it's
Interstellar, like yeah,
yeah, I don't think it's like
yeah,
fair to like just rank these films because this is a different kind of
Yeah.
experience that you get while watching Tenet, and you get a totally different kind of experience while watching another film like Dunkirk or Interstellar. But what I found on the internet about Tenet was the fact that a lot of people were calling this a part of the Time trilogy, like Inception,
yeah.
Interstellar,
Okay.
and Tenet. So they were labeling them as
I
like
mean, all
one
his
big
movies have
trilogy.
something to do with time.
No. So Nolan has a thing to manipulate time in order to control the narrative, is what we know. But I think like all
Yeah,
these
like
three films are they have a little bit of sci-fi in them, and that's why
mm,
the way they use time in all these films is what makes them like stand out from the rest of the Nolan films. Is what I think.
yeah, he has an obsession with time. Like even in his non-sci-fi movies, like Dunkirk, it's played over
Memento,
different
like
durations
yeah,
of time.
Dunkirk, yeah,
Or
yeah,
Memento is
Yeah,
played
yeah,
entirely
yeah,
reversed.
yeah.
That's my favorite one by him. That's entirely reversed, and there's a black and white sequence which is forward. So
yeah,
he
yeah.
really likes to do stuff with time. Yeah.
And speaking of like other Nolan films, I think like in Tenet there are a lot of references to other Nolan films as well. For example, the Freeport fight scene between the protagonist and the masked gunman, which we later knew was the protagonist himself. That scene, the way it was shot, like stylistically, it was very similar to the fight scene that we had in Inception with the Joseph Gordon-Levitt's dream sequence,
Oh
where the
yeah, the
hallway was
rotating hallway, right?
Always
Yeah, yeah,
rotating.
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
similarly,
yeah, yeah.
the scene where the intertwined cars in the stealing of the plutonium, that scene was very similar to another scene in The Dark Knight, where the Joker was shooting a car, is what I found. And also, like
Mm.
the core messaging of the film is very similar to Interstellar, because in Interstellar we know that the future is basically not safe, and the future generation sends their resources to the past in order for the
Mm.
past generation to like safeguard something for the future people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's actually reverse, right? I mean, in Interstellar, the future is actually trying to save the past, and in Tenet, the future is actually trying to battle the past
Yeah.
because yeah, they actually want to go backwards. So it's not that easy as it says. Like he just didn't think, okay, just like do the redo of Interstellar. Like it's not that easy. I mean, but the core idea was actually like this, right? Yeah, I think we'll conclude. So this has been the second part of our podcast series, and I think I hope you liked it, and stay tuned for more in this series. So yeah, thank you, and it's all from me. Bye.
Thank you.